welcome to the most recent issue of Meet the Nation. Today, we're talking to Joe and Zac of Aztec Protocol. Aztec is a privacy software solution working with zk proofs, zero-knowledge proofs on Ethereum to make private transactions a thing. And not only private transactions, but also private scalable transactions. Aztec has been a team working in this space for a while, long anticipated, and they are just rolling out their zk payments infrastructure, which is kind of like Venmo, on Ethereum, native payments on Ethereum. And so just, simple sends of ETH, USDC, but when you send it to someone, it sends it privately. And so this is in a roll-up. And so you deposit your assets into the roll-up, and then once they're in that roll-up, in your specific address on that roll-up, you can shield those funds and then send them to someone in a private manner using cryptographic magic. It's a really, really important conversation, really important piece of technology for Ethereum, because as we know, Ethereum and blockchain's open permissionless systems are completely transparent at all times. And so if we ever want to use this futuristic financial system for the future of finance, it would be really nice if we could pay people without doxing our own accounts, or just generally have privacy. We go into these conversations and why privacy is important in this show. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this Meet the Nation with the guys from Aztec Protocol. But first, we're going to talk about some of these fantastic sponsors that make this show possible. If you are looking for a product that connects your fiat bank account with DeFi tokens and products, you need to download the DHARMA mobile app. DHARMA is a non-custodial smart contract wallet and comes with a bridge that connects you right into your bank account. DHARMA is the fastest and most efficient wallet between your fiat in your bank account and any token on Uniswap, or even any vault in Yearn. With DHARMA, you can get over $25,000 per week into the DeFi universe, and you can do it non-custodially. If you or anyone you know is hot on DeFi and you're trying to get your money into a DeFi investment, DHARMA is the place to go. Signing up and going through KYC is an absolute breeze. It took me just under 3 minutes, and after signing into my bank account via Plaid, I am now just one transaction away from any token that Uniswap has to offer. Go to www.dharma.io. That's DHARMA.io. Download the DHARMA app and get yourself unbanked today. All right, Bankless Nation, I am here with Zac Williamson and Joe Andrews. Zac is the CTO at Aztec, and Joe is the Chief of Product at Aztec. Guys, welcome to the nation.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for having us on.
So Aztec Pro, you guys have been working for a decent while now, working to introduce privacy to Ethereum. So where does this conversation start? Why does Aztec need to exist, and how does Aztec bring privacy to Ethereum? Maybe we could start at the high level, the bird's eye view.
Do you want to take things away?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah. So why do we exist? Good question. Justify one's existence. We think that as a privacy company, obviously we think that privacy is essential to the long-term success and future of blockchain technology. So our thesis is effectively that as blockchain technology reaches more into people's everyday lives and it starts to intersect more with the real world, people's demands for privacy are going to very much mirror what they expect from their traditional Web2 counterparts. So when you're, for example, if you're getting your salary paid through a blockchain, or a large amount of your a large volume of your payments is going through a blockchain, and you don't want people to be able to snoop on what's going on there. In the much more short term, there's obviously DeFi has been an absolutely huge kind of industry over the last few years, and if you are trading large notionals, then that's a big problem, because that will move markets and people can see what you're doing and they can front run your trades, and you have all these associated issues that privacy can very efficiently resolve. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, because we think that it's kind of critical for the user to be able to have strong privacy guarantees if they want to use a blockchain if they want to move a lot of their kind of their online life into the Web3 world.
Joe, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just echo most of those sentiments, but I think it's a prerequisite for that as well. So if you want to have self-custody of your assets, I don't think that should come at the cost of everyone being able to see which those assets are, which is the current DeFi status quo. So we're setting out to change that, and it's going to be an exciting year with the launch of zk-Money as the first step.
Yeah, totally. My personal experience with privacy on chain is like I have two main wallets. I have like my cash wallet, which has 1 to 3% of my net worth, and because I'm bankless, all of my net worth is in Ethereum. And then I have my cold storage wallet, which is where like all the rest of my money is. And so when I'm trying to make payments, when I'm telling like friends to pay me back for something or whatever, and I'm trying to get them to use crypto, I tell them to pay my payment wallet. But then if I ever want to get my payment wallet money down to my cold storage wallet, then I link those two things. And so they can kind of see where literally all of my net worth is. And that's a terrible user experience, because when I ask them to Venmo me, that doesn't mean that they automatically get to like, look under the hood and see where all of my money is. And so that's bad UX. And Joe, you said something just now, like where if we all want people to use be like self-custody, do self-custody for their own funds, that implies that like, well, that's going to be transparent on the blockchain somewhere, where like, if I store my money on like Coinbase, I can kind of use Coinbase to kind of obscure things, but then I'm not self-custodying anymore. And that's kind of the whole point of this revolution. And I think there's maybe before we get into how Aztec works, maybe talk about how transparent blockchains are, because like people think that, Bitcoin, like naive people will say like Bitcoin is only good for money laundering, or like, crypto is just good for just like doing illegal, illicit activity. Maybe talk about how perhaps why that's not true, and how incredibly transparent these systems actually are.
Yeah.
I mean,
so do you want to take this, Joe?
Well, I just want to give an anecdote. One of our early employees actually fell fry of that same kind of pay me with crypto, and like we could kind of see what else was happening and which kind of DeFi protocols they've been investing in. And I think for even people in like the industry, like it's kind of one slip up and you're kind of branding your entire publishing everything on chain. And we've actually run a piece recently on Mark Cuban, who had the same slip up recently when he tried to buy an NFT. So yeah, I think there is a lot of misconceptions around how public a blockchain is. Maybe Zach can explain a little bit more about that case.
Well, right now, in order for a blockchain to function, in order for everybody to validate the correctness of everyone's transactions, you need the entire transaction graph to be public. So basically, the web of who's paying who and how much they're paying is completely visible to anybody. And so people think it's anonymous or isn't transparent because people's identities are kind of masked by addresses. So you have an Ethereum address that might not be linked to your real world identity, but the more kind of financial activity you actually perform with that Ethereum address, the less relevant your real world identity becomes, the more relevant your on-chain identity becomes. And particularly if you can link that information with who you are in the real world, which can be quite easy. If you just if you pay a friend, for example, and they see what your address is, and then that information can get broadcast to who knows who. And so because you can build up that entire transaction graph, you can perform quite sophisticated statistical analysis to see who's spending what, how they're spending it, and where they're spending it. So yeah, it's actually incredibly transparent technology, and it needs to be right now in order to function.
And there are entire companies like Chainalysis that are built on taking away the fog away from public blockchains, right? Where they are intentionally doing all of the data aggregation and analytics that they possibly can to help mainly things like governments do very noble things, which is track down actual real crimes. And I remember Chainalysis was part of this child pornography bust that they were using Bitcoin to pay for child porn. And that I'm super happy to find out that was something that was able to be traced. However, we can, extrapolate that into perhaps more dystopian versions of the future, where if every single financial action, every sort of political donation, every sort of like where you shopped and where you sent your money is completely public, it throws into question, like, are we really a free society if all of our money is completely public and all the consequences are public of our money. And this is something that David Chaum, I think, even predicted back in the 80s, where like if every single internet action that all humans ever do ever are public, that can be used to control society. And so the importance of personal privacy over your funds couldn't be any more important. So with that background, let's go into a little bit of the details as to how you guys actually add privacy to Ethereum. Let's start with the underlying technology there. And so, Zach, since you are the CTO, let's start with you. How do you guys actually add privacy to Ethereum?
So yeah, well, through zero knowledge cryptography. So it seems like on the surface, it seems like an almost impossible problem, because in order to validate the correctness of every Ethereum transaction, you need to see it. So how do you achieve privacy? How do you ensure the blockchain is correct? No one's spending or cheating when you can't actually see people's transactions. Mm-hmm. And so this is where zero knowledge proofs come in. It's a technology which allows you to basically to prove the correctness of some piece of logic, whilst keeping the actual allow you to hold back some secret information. So one example would be when you're logging onto a website, you could prove that you know your password without. So right now, if you log onto a website, generally what happens is you send your plain text password to the website. They then will hash it and check it against their records and see if you know the password to your username. But instead, you could serve a zero knowledge proof, proving to the website, say to Amazon, saying, like, I know what the password is for my username. I'm not going to share it with you, but here's a mathematical proof that I know it. And that's kind of effectively a similar thing to what we're doing here, where we're encoding a encrypted transaction in one of these zero knowledge proofs, so that you can you have some inputs and some outputs, and you prove that the sum of the inputs equals the sum of the outputs, so that there's no double spending. But it allows you to encrypt the values that are being transferred, and allows you to encrypt the identities of the senders and the recipients. So at a high level, that's how it works. However, it's getting it working on Ethereum. It's beset with a lot of technical challenges, just because this technology is quite difficult to use at scale, because it's very, very computationally intensive to construct these mathematical proofs.
Right. And so Ethereum doesn't actually care about its own transparent nature. It doesn't care to publish everything to the world. It only cares that a transaction is legitimate or not. And so the problem being tackled here is, like, can we tell Ethereum that we are making a legitimate transaction without also doing all the transparency stuff? Like, if we make everything public, that's a very easy way to indicate to Ethereum that this is a legitimate transaction. But there are other ways that we can communicate to Ethereum that this transaction is legitimate, that we can obfuscate all of the identity features behind that transaction. And so again, like you said, that's with zero knowledge proofs, which is a cryptographic tool. How computationally intensive is this cryptographic tool? And is that a variable that can be adjusted via innovation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a variable that has been adjusted quite heavily already. We had to invent a lot of the technology ourselves to get this working on Ethereum. So this I guess the first case of this technology being used in production was with the pioneering Zk blockchain in 2015. To give some numbers, like, it would take a Zcash node about 30 seconds to grind through the computations needed to make a zero knowledge proof, and that's running like software directly on your laptop or your computer. Generally, when people are using Ethereum, they're visiting dApps, which means that your typical mode of interaction is going to be a website, and the software you can run and web setting is going to be much slower than you can run if you're natively installing code on a machine like a Zcash node. So basically, the Zcash trick originally took 30 seconds to make the proof. Our zero knowledge circuits are more complicated than the Zcash ones, because we wanted to build a social account recovery functionality. And we're building for the web, where things are where cryptography is roughly 8 times slower. So you run those numbers, and you can easily get to transaction proof construction times that run into several minutes, if not longer.
And does that run up against Ethereum's block time? So if that proof construction time takes over a minute, yet Ethereum block times are 12 seconds, do those things collide, or are those different? They're
a bit different because this is a user constructing a private transaction proof in that browser. So they can in theory they can send it in any block. So they don't have to construct it within a block time. But for the sake of the user experience, you don't want them waiting like a minute or 10 minutes to grind through the zero knowledge proof.
Their computer CPU is just like going, and their fan is heating up, and all that stuff. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So we did a lot of original research into this problem ourselves. So me and our chief scientist Ariel Gabazon published a new kind of what's called universal zk-Snark. Which basically it's one of these. The zk-Snark is a fancy kind of zero knowledge proof where you can take any program and turn it into a mathematical proof. Traditionally, these zk-Snarks come with a lot of drawbacks, like you need to do these very elaborate kind of trusted setups when you build these when you kind of encode your programs as zero knowledge proofs, zero knowledge circuits, which is a big security risk and it's a big coordination problem. Universal Snarks basically get around the problem by requiring basically you need to do one trusted setup to generate some cryptographic secrets that nobody knows the keys to. But once you've done that step, which we did last year with our ignition ceremony, then you can build you can encode any kind of program as a zk-Snark cycle without running additional trusted setups. So that was one of the innovations that this new proving system we built about water table, which we call Plonk. We thought it was a funny name at the time, and it's also one of the it's the fastest universal Snark available at the moment. And so we've had to basically improve the speed of these proving systems by at least an order of magnitude to make it practical for Ethereum.
Would you describe this as perhaps your guys' main obstacle, or your main goal is, or the main purpose of Aztec is trying and compressing zk proofs into as small as a bite size? Is that even the right terminology, or just compressing the efficiency of these proofs down to as small as possible? Because is that the thing that you guys have really unlocked?
Well, more or less, we didn't. It's not really the proof size which is the problem, because the existing proving system, existing Snark techs already crushed down the proof sizes to very small values. It's more the time it takes to construct these mathematical proofs on a computer. That was the massive bottleneck that we had to make perform a lot of original research to solve.
We still have some way to go as well. I mean, if you kind of look at this coming on par with a card transaction or a Venmo transaction end to end is kind of a second, maybe a couple of seconds if you have a network hiccup. zk-money on a good device is about 8 seconds right now, but the next version coming out in the summer will make us on par with that, especially on native provers in apps. So I'd say we're mostly there for payments. The next challenge is then what other things can you do with these kind of transactions? Because we're not kind of in a fixed world of hey, I can just pay you. We're running on Ethereum, so we can do anything. So you can do much more exciting things, and those proofs are still a little bit too slow to run on the browser. But by the end of the year, we should be in a position where you can do very complicated kind of proofs, maybe taking out a personal loan, proving your salary is above a certain threshold for a credit score. Those sorts of things become a possibility, and we're really excited for that to kind of become unlocked and have people move their identities into this network.
Right. That's definitely some of the more sci-fi applications of zero knowledge stuff. And I definitely want to get in there, but I think I've gone a little bit too far into the weeds for the listeners. So I want to back up and ask, what is Aztec, and what is the product that is available that you guys just released a couple days ago? Maybe let's start there.
Sure. So we launched a kind of demo of our protocol as it stands currently. It's at zk.money. So you can go to it now, it's live. You can think of it as a private Venmo. So you can register a username, shield some funds. At the moment, we just support ETH, but we'll have DAI, BTC, and a few other assets coming shortly. Once you've shielded the funds, they're private, they're kind of cloaked under the Aztec veil, and you can send them to any other username in the network for a reduction in fees compared to sending it on standard Ethereum, or you could send it back to a different Ethereum address. So back to your earlier example of kind of your cash wallet and your hardware wallet, you could move funds between those wallets using Aztec if you wanted to, or you could have your friends pay you at your zk-Money username instead of your hot wallet. So short term, we're going after kind of the private Venmo for the crypto community.
Right. And so when I've made my Aztec account, it's David Hoffman at David Hoffman, just like my Venmo. And then what I did is I submitted 1 ETH. I deposited 1 ETH, and that's into a roll up, right? You guys are on a roll up.
Yep. So yeah, one of the things zk-Snarks can also be used for scaling as well as privacy. So we did both. Yeah. So we were operating basically a layer 2 sidechain using our zk-Snark tech to enable more efficient private transactions.
Okay, and then what kind of roll-up construction is that?
So it's not it's one that it's I guess it's called technically it's called the zk rollup, the zk rollup. Basically, we users construct private transactions locally on their device, and they send them to a rollup provider. And at that point, the rollup provider has no discernible information. You've already encrypted and anonymized your identity. And the rollup provider's job is to basically aggregate a lot of transactions together. So they take 128 of these private transactions, and they construct a zero-knowledge proof, which kind of validates the correctness of these transactions, so that the only thing that goes to the Ethereum mainnet is one zero-knowledge proof that proves 128 private transactions instead of just one, which massively reduces the cost of what we're doing.
I remember Vitalik having a talk about this, where he was talking about the power of roll-ups, and then he just went one layer deeper. It's like, well, we have roll-ups, but what if we rolled it up again? And I think maybe that's what you guys are talking about, where you're adding in zero-knowledge proofs, which do compress data, right? And then inject it into a roll-up, which compresses that data again. And then that is what is submitted to Ethereum. So not only do we have efficiency in transactions, but we also have privacy at the same time. That's pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah, that's exactly what we do. And one of the main innovations we had, we developed, was we were the first team that created the kind of technology that was capable of creating basically zero-knowledge proofs that validate other zero-knowledge proofs in a manner that's compatible with Ethereum.
Very cool. And so, okay, so back to my user experience flow. So I set up David Hoffman on your guys's roll up, and then I submitted 1 Ether, and so I have 1 Ether in that roll up, and then I was able to shield that transaction. But I've got a question for you guys. Why was I only able to shield 0.39 of my 1 Ether that I deposited?
Yeah, no, you should have been able to shield the full amount unless you paid a very high fee. So we enable users to kind of configure the fee to make the roll up settle faster. If you shielded 1 ETH and that was kind of settled and all your transactions were stable, you should have that as your spendable balance. If you were trying to send that to another user,
maybe that's where I got caught up, because I think I was only able to send a fraction of the Ether that I deposited.
Yeah, so this is you can think of this a bit like a Bitcoin UTXO. So when you have a shielded balance, it's not actually stored as one number. They're encrypted notes that have different values. So you'll start with kind of a note worth 1 zk-ETH, and then as you send it, if you send me 0.1, you end up with kind of a change note that's worth 0.9. And you have to, in the current system, you have to wait for that transaction to be processed before you get your change back, before you can then process the next transaction. You can solve this with kind of a bit more cryptography, but in the current system, you have to wait a little bit. So if you're planning on doing lots of kind of individual transactions, it's best to kind of shield smaller amounts, so you end up with lots of different notes. Or if you want to do a larger transaction, shield it all in one go.
So we're working on resolving that user experience. It's it's just because it's our first deployment of this tech. There are a few kinks like this that we need to work out to make it a truly seamless experience.
So when you guys said that I could ask people to send me money on my ZK account, can I get them to do that from the main Ethereum L1? Can that be one seamless transaction? And do they need to be aware of the fact that I'm sending them to a ZK wallet, or do they need to also have their Ether or USDC or DAI or whatever in the ZK rollup?
Long term, we can get there. At the moment, they would have to kind of shield via zk.money, but they can shield directly to you. So instead of shielding to themselves and then sending it, they can do one transaction. I think it's quite an exciting place to maybe take the conversation for a little bit, because if a wallet decides to integrate that and the native kind of flow inside a wallet is kind of, hey, send, the wallet could look up at David Hoffman or your Ethereum address, and it could decide how you want to receive things. And there's quite a lot of work being done by ENS to actually resolve ENS domains to an L2. So we're part of a research discussion group to try and get that working over the next year or two. So I think long term, it shouldn't matter kind of where you want to receive your funds. In the short term, because this is kind of bleeding edge tech, there's a little bit of friction there.
Yeah, let's go into that a little bit more. So, people often talk about with rollups and L2s, there's fragmented liquidity, there's onboarding and offboarding onto these rollups, and people are worried about that UX. And then we have the conversations around Connext, when Connext is trying to build payment channels between various L2s. Just go into more detail about how you guys are, or the available options or paths forward that you guys have to help the flow of funds going in and out of the rollup.
Sure. So I think we definitely see the fragmentation issues of people trying to move DeFi protocols to other layer twos. For us, we're kind of focused on privacy. So our L2 is going to be a home for people's funds, where they can go out and do safe private transactions. So we're actually, in the next release, we're building a bridge. We call it the DeFi bridge. And that bridge enables you to kind of, I think of it like a bus leaving the rollup, and it's a bus going to a certain destination. It could be Uniswap, it could be another L2, it could be anywhere basically on Ethereum. And we're using kind of tools like that to help us aggregate the cost of moving funds from Aztec to another system. I do think that there is risk though with kind of other projects kind of trying to split the liquidity pools, and our short-term kind of goal is just to, whenever we talk about DeFi, we're going to point our roll up to the main net liquidity pool. So we'll have an ETH DAI swap in a liquid pair, and we'll kind of make that available through the roll up, and it will call out to Uniswap L1 directly and make the swap and bring the funds back. We just think it's a kind of a simpler way of getting the same effect without having to bake in all these new trust assumptions of fraud proofs or complex L2 code.
Sure. So if I have a bunch of ZK ETH that I've deposited and I want to turn that into ZK DAI, maybe I send you, I sign a message and you guys receive it on the roll up, and then whenever the bus leaves, I don't know, maybe once every hour or so, whenever the bus leaves, then all my ZK ETH will be swapped for ZK DAI, and none of my privacy features or characteristics will have been leaked to the main chain.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, and and if that bus has like a 99 other users on it, then you only pay 1% of the cost of a layer one Uniswap transaction.
And so that one Uniswap trade is actually shared between everyone else on the bus as well, probably plus a little bit more of a little bit extra computation as well, but again, split between every single rider on the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
And then could the rate of buses leave faster and faster and faster?
Yeah, as long as there's demand for it. Yeah.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And where else can these buses go? Like where instead of just with AMMs, is there other options as well?
Yeah, well, we're working on creating like a kind of an interface. What we're calling this bridge contract, where basically the way we're modeling it is as a if your interaction with like layer 2 or DeFi protocol can be modeled as a token swap or 2 token swaps, then you should be able to integrate with this portal to our layer 2 that we're building, so that you can then get the benefit of kind of having aggregate these kind of buses of users leaving Aztec and transacting with your protocol.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the interview so far. Quick break in the action because we got to take a moment to talk about some of these fantastic sponsors that make the show possible. AAVE is a borrowing and lending protocol on Ethereum and just recently released AAVE version 2, which has a ton of cool new features that makes using AAVE even more powerful. With AAVE, you can leverage the full power of DeFi, money Legos, yield, and composability all in one application. On AAVE, there are a ton of assets that you can deposit in order to gain yield, and all of those same assets can also be borrowed from the protocol if you have deposited collateral. Here you can see me getting a 200 USDC loan against my portfolio of a number of different DeFi tokens and ETH. I'll choose a variable interest rate because it's a lower rate than the stable interest rate option, but I could choose the stable interest rate option if I wanted to lock that interest rate in permanently. One of AAVE's V2 features is the ability to swap collateral without having to withdraw your assets, trade them on Uniswap, and then deposit them back into AAVE. AAVE does all of this for you all in one seamless transaction, so you don't have to repay loans in order to change the collateral you have backing them. Check out the power of AAVE at aave.com. That's AAVE.com. GEMINI is the world's most trusted cryptocurrency exchange. I've been a customer of GEMINI since I first got back into crypto back in 2017, and it has been my main exchange of choice to make my crypto buys and sells. GEMINI is available in all 50 states and over 50 countries worldwide. And on GEMINI, there are markets for over 30 various crypto assets, including many of the hot DeFi tokens like YFI, AAVE, Uni, and also they are one of the few exchanges that has liquid DAI markets. Having both the option of logging into the Gemini.com website or instead opening the GEMINI mobile app has allowed me to be able to access any and all exchange and on or off ramp services that I've needed to on a moment's notice. With instant deposits and fast withdrawals, I'm able to make my money do the things I want it to when I want it to. You can buy crypto safely and securely on GEMINI with the peace of mind of knowing that your investments are insured and protected with industry-leading cybersecurity. You can open up a free account in under 3 minutes at gemini.com/gobankless. And if you trade more than $100 within the first 30 days after sign up, you'll be gifted a free $15 bonus. Check them out, gemini.com/gobankless. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So if I remember correctly, the product roadmap for Aztec was first getting these private payments and privacy, the ZK rollup out the door. But then I think I remember something about just private smart contracts, like generalized private smart contracts. Is that what's next on the roadmap? Is that the next logical spot in the conversation, or is there something first that we should talk about?
Well, that's the next. It's the end game. I don't want to make any kind of I don't want to make any unrealistic claims about when we'll get there, because there are a ton of technical hurdles that we need to overcome. But we've already we've done all the heavy R&D lifting. So it's just about building the tech now. So right now on layer 2 you can just do basic private transactions, but the end state is that you can create completely private smart contracts directly within our layer 2. Kind of instead of your smart contract being encoded as an EVM, as a block EVM code, your smart contract's encoded as a SNARK circuit. And that'll enable users to build fully private assets where they can define their own transaction types and their own logic for how these transactions can occur, as well as building quite feature-rich DeFi protocols that can talk to these private cryptocurrencies. And the end goal is to have that all happening directly on our layer 2. So to minimize the transaction costs of these kind of inter-private contract transactions.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, that the path to getting there is, I think, quite interesting as well, because there's a number of kind of stepping stones, I think, that make that truly useful. And right now, you may have noticed there's a limit on zk-Money, and partly that's because of kind of the custody around keys in zk-Money. We've solved that in the current version that we're testing on kind of internally, where we can kind of actually use standard Ethereum keys. So not only now kind of the cost of a private transaction will be cheaper than like a normal Ethereum transaction, but you can enjoy the same kind of custody benefits that you choose to use for your kind of layer 1 assets So I think that's a prerequisite. And then secondly
Wait, so what does that mean? Does that mean that the same private keys that I have on my normal MetaMask or Ledger wallet does the same thing on the ZK wallet? So like perhaps I just use that MetaMask drop down from going from the Ethereum L1 to going to the ZK rollup. Is that what that implies?
Precisely. So yeah, right now with the tech we've released, which you need to generate an Aztec account which has its own Aztec private keys, which is quite like this is the generally the way that private transaction systems have to operate, because the kind of cryptography that Ethereum does to validate Ethereum transactions typically has been a little bit too expensive to perform inside a snark circuit. But our latest research has solved that problem, so that in our next version of the rollup, yeah, you're going to be able to directly authorize and validate private transactions in our layer 2 rollup directly with signatures signed through MetaMask with your Ethereum keys.
Very cool. Very cool. Sorry, Joe, to cut you off. You were taking us through the path to get to private applications.
Yeah. So then the second step is we kind of have basic kind of contracts working internally for this DeFi bridge we're building, but it's not developer friendly. And so kind of, I guess, like point 3 on the journey is us rolling that out to mainstream users and kind of battle testing the system. And once that's done, we can kind of take all those learnings and roll it up in a very nice kind of developer friendly SDK. And with our programming language, we've been building called Noir, which will kind of realize the full end state of the vision. I think it's worth going into the details of Noir because it's out in alpha, but it's obviously not usable in the rollup yet. We're just getting feedback on the language. Yeah, it's an ambitious roadmap, but I think that the next kind of 3-6 months there'll be a lot of updates, and I think people will start to see that this is kind of no longer kind of sci-fi tech, and it's running live on mainnet. So we're super excited.
Yeah, Joe, paint us that picture. What is the world of Ethereum like when Aztec is towards the end of its roadmap and everything that you guys want to achieve has been achieved? What can we do with Ethereum now that this new technology has been unlocked?
That's a good question. I think we can, I like to think of like the kind of software developer who's probably working at a crypto startup. He's now getting his salary paid through DAI. He's gone completely bankless, and now he's going for a loan. He can prove just from his phone like that he's got enough kind of like headroom in his like disposable income to get the loan for his mortgage. Maybe he can even buy the house on chain as some sort of NFT for a Noir contract, but that's maybe a few years away. There's some property law you'd have to solve first. But yeah, I think those sorts of things are going to start to be kind of the topic of the conversation over the next kind of maybe 12 to 18 months. It's kind of no longer DeFi, but like user finance that I think is where we're really excited. It's the sort of finance that you want in your everyday life, and those are the things that Aztec's focused on.
So lately, especially with all of this DeFi speculation been going on, we've been every time that like SBF or Alameda Research, every time that they move their funds on chain, people say like, oh, they start to speculate like where those funds are going to go. Like Three Arrows Capital, their address is DeFi maximalist.eth, and so people watch that address, and then all of a sudden you will see like some random token pumping, or some massively valued NFT be purchased from an exchange. With a maximally successful version of Aztec is all of the movements of these funds, or like somebody buys like the $60 million like Beeple NFT, and like people are all trying to speculate who it is. With Aztec, this can all be done and in theory, no one would ever be able to know who is doing any sort of activity at all unless they chose to actually publish that. Is that correct?
Definitely,
yeah. That's what we want to get to. So I don't think we're gonna. So we're not gonna. The plan isn't to completely put a cloak around DeFi, because it's very difficult to be completely pragmatic about this. It's quite difficult to do a few things with full privacy, like for example, decentralized trade matching. If you don't know what the trades are, how do you match them? But what you can do is you can anonymize the identities of the traders, and you can also obfuscate the values by effectively making every transaction type uniform. So like if you have an exchange trading like ETH and DAI, if you make if you want to do a large trade of say like 1,000 ETH, if you split that up into 1,001 ETH transactions using a rollup, so it's cheap, then you can maintain the anonymity of your identity, and so yeah, people will know the trade is happening. So and that could still move markets, but they won't know who is actually the beneficiary or the instigator.
Very cool. Very cool. And so that's hopefully like where we end up. But what about for the end of 2021? Like how will Aztec technology impacts people's lives this year?
Yeah, so I think zk.money, we're going to try and grow it another 10x at least in terms of users, and really increase the functionality there. So we want private swaps from inside the interface, and starting to also think about kind of other areas you can spend your capital. So if you've got some funds in zk.money, maybe you can use it to buy some things, kind of privacy products like password managers or VPNs. So start to think of it a bit more like a kind of more like just a private home for your funds on Ethereum. So when you want to go and do something, you first go to zk.money, and then you can dispatch those funds to a friend or to purchase something. By the end of the year, yeah, we'll have these L1 integrations for swapping out popular DeFi assets, and we'll have fingers crossed testnet versions of Noir in programmable privacy, kind of in alpha, people playing around with it on the testnets. But it'll be a few more months into kind of 2022 before we're ready to let the training wheels come off Noir itself, because it's extremely complicated.
Well, I'm very, very optimistic about the future of Aztec. And guys, I have to ask the question, since we're in a bull market, is there a part of Aztec where a token makes sense? Is there a room for a token in the future of Aztec?
Do you want to feel this one, Jay?
Sure. Definitely there is. I mean, tokens have huge kind of benefits, especially in networks, and they can incentivize the community, and more specifically on a kind of layer 2 network where you need to kind of decentralize the actual network itself and have these kind of block producers or roll-up providers, as we call them. Incentivizing those to perform correctly is a perfect use for a token. We're doing a lot of analysis on how to do that and whether it fits our kind of model. But yeah, I definitely think if we achieve that vision, a token will have some big part of it.
Wow, very cool. Awesome. Is there anything else that people should know about the future of Aztec and your guys' technology? Anything we haven't covered yet?
I mean, I think all the points have pretty much been hit. Yeah, I mean, if you want to play around with it, you know, we're like, as Joe said, we're live at zk.money. If you want to experience, affordable privacy on Ethereum, it's here today, and yeah, we're really excited to be able to kind of like turbocharge our technology and bring a lot of innovation over the coming years.
Right. So now that zk.money and Aztec technology has been deployed to Ethereum, I would imagine that you guys are looking for users, but I would also imagine you guys are looking for specific kinds of users or specific types of developers. So for people that are watching this, what kind of DeFi users or developers are you guys really looking for to help stress test your technology?
Yes, on the user front, I think it's anyone who's kind of had the same problem we went through earlier. They've moved some of their funds into Ethereum, and they have two pools of capital and they don't want to link them. I think that's a great early user to test the current version. And in terms of developers, we have all of the functionality available that we built zk.money with through our SDK. So if you're a developer at a wallet or any sort of crypto custody solution, I think having a play with our docs, which are live at developers.aztec.network, would be a good place to start. And we can't wait to see people start to build their own interfaces that integrate with the system, because this is a permissionless network after all. So yeah, it's not up to us what you build. We've just given you an example of what you can build. So yeah, we're very excited to see how the community takes that and moves it forward.
Fantastic. And if people listening want to join the community or just learn more, where does the community live? Do you guys have a Discord, a Telegram?
Yeah, we've got a Discord. We can add that to the comments or something.
Yep. Yeah. I'll add that into the show notes for sure. Awesome. Well, guys, this has been a fantastic exploration into Aztec. So Zach and Joe, thank you for joining me on Bankless Meet the Nation.
Thanks for having us on. It's been a pleasure.